Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, a man the elderly women of Kansas City refer to as El Matador, my brother Mike.
Yes, they do. I am known by many different things in many different languages. And so, yeah, I am the Matador
But to
for
be
the over
specific,
70 crowd.
I was going to say he is the Matador only at the senior facilities here in Kansas City. Nothing.
Just an old John Knox village over here.
Yeah, that's it. Nothing too crazy for him. He just carries around tapioca pudding in his pockets most of the time. It's the thing,
and hard candies.
ooh, and so yeah, he's got a reputation, if you will. Wink, like he's got, it's real seedy, it's real gross. On this week's episode, we'll stifle our vomit long enough to talk about a real stink pile of a week from the Royals. I tried to get creative with that one. And then we will talk a little bit about trades, extensions, and or what the Royals should do with certain players on this roster in terms of keeping them around or getting value for them. And then we'll finish off with a little preview of next week's games. You'll, of course, realize that you may be listening to this on Sunday instead of Monday because we are recording this one day early. For us, it is Saturday, September 2nd. Instead of Sunday, September 3rd, when we would normally record it, because I am leaving on vacation tomorrow. I am going to Spain, and I'm leaving it all behind. I'm leaving Royals Weekly behind. I'm leaving my cares behind. It's going to be one. I'm leaving Mike behind. Most importantly, I'm leaving Mike behind. And I'm going to go sit on a beach and think about none of this. And so next week, we'll come back at our regularly scheduled time, but Alex Duvall will be joining Mike to help captain this ship, and we'll see what bay it ends up in the bottom of. Because
I get to be the host,
likely.
everybody. Yay!
Yeah, that's going to go great, I think. We'll see on that one. I also want to remind you to follow us on all social medias. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Mike's doing Threads things. It's a party on all those. I haven't been tweeting as much lately because I've been preparing to go to Spain. But I promise when I get back, I will be tweeting up a storm. We'll be doing a bunch of analysis on those various platforms. We're on TikTok now. With the kids, we're doing these dances and stuff. Mike's going to be doing some of these. What do we? No, we're putting out clips and different videos and stuff on the platform, on TikTok and all these other places. So follow us, Royals Weekly, and we will hopefully get you some more fun interaction with the group here. Also, I want to remind you that Royals Weekly is brought to you by All In Physical Therapy. For one-on-one personalized physical therapy, we choose All In Physical Therapy. They took excellent care of our mother after surgery left her with pain and limited mobility in her arm. She loves to work out, be active.
I once saw her throw a baseball through a brick wall.
The excellent specialized care she got at All In Physical Therapy had her back to doing stuff like that in no time.
With her feet. She threw it through the wall with her feet.
I'm telling you, the athleticism and pure strength on this person is something you guys got to see. All In Physical Therapy knows how to help athletes recover. It's owned and operated by Lee Summit's own Tommy Freevert, a former Arena League football player, Northwest Missouri State Bearcat, and a hell of a guy. They have offices in both Blue Springs and Lee Summit, so get over there to work with Tommy. Tell your doctor you want to do your physical therapy with the best of the best at All In Physical Therapy. To learn more, give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. Or visit their website at allin-pt.com. That's allin-pt.com. Those of you who listened to the show previously know that we start this review of last week with roster news, and we're very emphatic about that. I'm a little bit sad about the roster news this week because my boy John the Whammer McMillan went on the 15-day IL with right forearm strain, which is, sometimes the precursor to other large, I'm not going to say the word or anything like that, but there are some things that sometimes leads to. Mike, what are your thoughts about seeing John McMillan go on the 15-day IL?
I hope it's a legit just a strain. But as you and I and anybody who really follows the game consistently knows that sometimes a strain turns into a certain thing named after a former pitcher that he is now more famous for than his pitching. So, yeah, really need the Whammer. Do not need him to be shelved permanently.
Yeah, it's an injury that rhymes with Boo P. Bell injury. Okay, we hope it's not that. We hope it's not Ronnie Hahn surgery. Mike, I'm having trouble coming up with the rhymes here. The only thing I have down here for here, you guys know
I got
that
nothing.
that meme from Brooklyn Nine-Nine where he's like, pain. That's all I'm thinking when I hear that. When John the Wimmer McMillan went down, and I saw the news, I was like, how like this team cannot have any good things happen to it. Like John McMillan was like the one little bright shine of light in this bullpen, and then all of a sudden, bam, down.
I mean,
you know,
yeah,
it
the
was rough.
pitching staff can't have anything good for sure.
Well, that's true. That's for sure.
But on the hitting side, we've had one or two positive things, but yeah, the pitching staff can't. I mean, other than Cole Reagans, can't have anything good happen to it.
Mm-mm. It just doesn't feel. It feels so much like, taking hits left and right, just taking hits. I guess you're right, Mike. I guess one of the positives, or one of the things that seems like a positive, is Nick Loftin was promoted to Major League Baseball this week. Rosters expand to 28 in September, so a lot of teams use that to promote any sort of prospects they want to get a look at before the start of next season. And so Nick Loftin was brought up to the Major League team, made his debut yesterday in Friday's game. Had a couple hits, had a walk. He got on base a bunch. Of course, everybody was hitting yesterday. Mike, what are your thoughts on Nick Loftin coming up to Major League Baseball?
I'm excited to see him. It creates an interesting thing for the Royals because he's somewhat of a utility guy, but his most effective position is going to be third in the future. But they have Michael Garcia there, and so it's really going to be a question of where do you like him in the future, and how is he going to fit on a future role of this team, and does that allow, if he is really effective here at the end of this year, does that allow you to move a piece like Michael Garcia, or to move a piece like Michael Massey if you feel like he has any value, or you know what I'm saying? So Nick Loftin does add some intrigue to this roster moving forward.
Yeah, it's intrigue in part because there's a lot of unknown here. Lofton has had some level of success hitting at AAA, but he hasn't torn the doors off or anything like that. I think he's got like a 270 average. He's walking at about 10%, striking out at about 10%, but 175 ISO, stuff like that. And so you look at him and you say, well, you love the walk and strikeout numbers that he's putting up in the minor leagues and now in AAA especially. But it's like kind of like a test case for secondary numbers versus overall numbers. There's a reason he's not hitting super well. I think he's got a 95 weighted runs created plus in AAA. That's 5% below league average. Like, that's not tremendous for a guy you would bring up, but he does limit strikeouts and he does get walks. And so, he's going to put the ball in play. He's going to get on base decent with walks. And so you got to wonder, what's his profile look like at offensively in the majors? The thing about Nick Loftin playing third is right now our issue with Mikel Garcia playing third, or mine anyway, is that there's not a third base power profile from Mikel Garcia. The same might be true with Nick Loftin, honestly, maybe to a lesser degree, but Loftin doesn't have the kind of power you would say like a Nolan Arenado or something like that. He's not a prototypical third baseman, just moved there this year, bulked up to try and make that transition. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do with 1 month of major league play, because that's essentially what he'll get. And then he'll get a chance, I guess, in spring training. In that reliever mold, that John McMillan may have gone down with an injury, but the Royals did promote someone. We're going to look at Steven Cruz on the Major League side, because he was promoted to Major League Baseball. His first outing was pretty rough. He did pitch yesterday, and I think pitched pretty well. Mike, what are your thoughts on Steven Cruz making it to the Major Leagues?
He's at least an interesting guy. He throws really friggin' hard. He's like if a John McMillan were less polished and probably with a little less potential than what McMillan has, that's kind of what you have in Steven Cruz. But it is fun to watch him throw, because he throws harder than hell, and he has the strikeout ability. But as we also saw in that first game, he has the throw a fastball very straight and get it hit out quite quickly ability too. So, if he can, manage that and locate a little bit better, then I think you have an effective reliever. But that's what the rest of this year is for, is to see a guy like Steven Cruz, to see if he's another piece you can add to the bullpen, hopefully with the Whammer and maybe some other guys, Carlos Hernandez. I always forget Ponytail guy's name now. He's hurt. Throws really hard, or used to throw really hard. Big curveball. Help me out, Mark.
Stamont?
Yes, thank you. Man bun, maybe not ponytail, but
Yeah.
Stamont, maybe if he's coming back off injury, something to help this bullpen that is in desperate, desperate need. Because I
You
watched
know what
Davidson pitch today. Ugh.
you know what we call the throw a fastball really straight and get it hit out? We call that the Jackson
Carlos
Cohort.
Hernandez.
So
Oh,
there's just so many
yeah.
guys
Well,
from this
he
Royals
at least
bullpen.
throws it at as 100. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, well, you mean he gets close anyway. Yeah, they need
Yeah.
every reliever who might be anything for them. They just need so much help in the bullpen that if Cruz can be it, great. We'll see if Will Klein gets some look this year. If not, he'll get some look in spring training. I just whatever the answers are it's gonna be such a massive need. I don't know if they'll have the ability to overturn how bad this bullpen is in one offseason. It's just so bad, and so they need essentially 7 different arms. If McMillan's down, maybe we need to look at like an entire overhaul of the bullpen. I mean, Hernandez, maybe you give him a shot, but nobody has proven that they really got a locked position in this bullpen. On the field last week, it was a roof, really roof for the Royals. I think I described it here as a hot pile of garbage, which is kind of a par for the course sometimes. They won one game so far. Now they are playing right now. They're getting killed 9-1. It's like the 7th, I think, right now, but they are losing 9-1 to the Boston Red Sox right now. Earlier in the week, they were swept by the Pittsburgh Pirates, an organization so awful fans routinely call for the owner to sell the team. Okay, so that's how bad Pittsburgh is. And so far, they've won the one game against Boston on Friday. They destroyed Boston on Friday, but then they're getting destroyed tonight. Like, what are your thoughts on the Royals last week and how they look?
Ooh, very bad. Their offense has just kind of fallen off. It was doing so well there for that stretch, with the exception of the game yesterday when they scored 13. Their offense has been very, let's just call it inconsistent. That's the polite way of saying it's been bad for a long stretch. They've been inconsistent. That's not ever gonna be okay when your pitching is as bad as it is. So they need their offense to get some consistency, put together good plate appearances, and be in that scoring of 6 runs range to get them consistent wins.
Right, because it's audition time for guys in the offense and in the pitching staff, I guess, but definitely for guys in the offense.
For
Like
sure.
we for some reason people started talking about the offense like it was real settled. Like, okay, this is the offense there for a while, and I get the instinct to do that because they played pretty well for quite a stretch. But a lot of these guys, it's not settled. It's settled that Bobby Wood Jr. will be at shortstop, and that's about it. Right, like so. I guess it's maybe settled that Vinny Pasquantino will play first when he gets healthy, but that's about it. Like they don't have anybody where I'm like, yes, this guy locked in at this position. Like it doesn't really work like that. Maybe Salvador Perez, I guess, but we're not even sure he's going to be on the team. So, yeah, the thing that got me is it looked pretty lifeless out there at times. This is the first week where I saw them play, and I was like, yeesh, it just doesn't really look like they're. And they came out with comments of their own that was like, yeah, energy wise, it didn't seem like it was there tonight. And I was like, yeah, it looked like that. That's weird though. Like this team has sort of always been noted for the fact that yeah, they're losing a lot of games, but they're staying in it. They're competing and that sort of thing. But there were a couple games this week where I was like, that doesn't seem like the case today. We did have a few strong performances, despite the fact that the team itself was not great. Mike, tell us, you're going with your boy again this week. Tell us why Cole Reagans is looking like the second coming of Sandy Koufax here.
Yeah, I mean, I could have gone with Bobby Witt Jr. again. He had another good week, but I had to highlight Cole Reagans again because the guy is just so good. I think that they showed it on the broadcast when he pitched last week, like where he kind of ranks as far as the month of August and up against Dennis Leonard with the strikeouts and things like that. He's had a run here that is about as good as any Royals pitcher in Royals history. You're talking, I mean, when you compare the run that he's had in these, I think 7 or 8 starts, whatever it is, you're comparing it to guys like Saberhagen in '86 and Zach Greinke the year he won the Cy Young Award and like those level of things that are like, the best of what Royals pitchers have done. Now he's done it in a much shorter time, so we still have to see, but 7 innings pitch, 1 walk and 9 strikeouts, no runs given up, only 3 hits. That was a dominant performance. Every time he goes out there, it feels like a dominant performance. And it's just so, in a season that is so bad, it's so good to see them feel like they really won that trade big time. and
Oh
got a
yeah.
guy that could be an anchor for a rotation. That feels very good when you've lost, 90 games already.
Yes. Yeah, 94. If you didn't catch the overall record now, it is 42-94 is the overall record there. They've gone 1-3 last week. Yeah, Cole Reagans, man, there's not enough superlative to say what he's done at the major league level with the Royals. It's incredible. It's incredible to think. And I mean, national media is picking up on what Reagans did in the month of August. And they're like, hey, this guy is incredible out here. Like, everybody should be paying attention to the Royals when he starts anyway. Don't pay attention to them at other times. Just tune in for the Reagan starts, and then we'll see. Well, what 20% of their games? We'll see how that goes. But yeah, you're right. And what's incredible is Reagan's didn't have the 99, 100-mile-an-hour fastball in the Pittsburgh game. He was still throwing pretty hard, but it wasn't going. He's still just dicing them up. Dyson. Could not touch him. It was incredible to watch. I'm talking about a guy who I'm glad bounced back this week because he was on our week performer list, I think, last week, and that's Freddie Fermin. He went 5 for 10 this week. I think this was before today. One double, one walk, one strikeout. A guy not necessarily being more patient, maybe being a little bit more patient at the plate this week. We called for him to be a little bit more patient, but he's just finding the barrel with the ball a little bit, or the ball with the barrel a little bit more, putting the ball in play hard and that sort of thing. It's nice to see him gain some confidence at the plate. Confidence, in my mind, usually comes, and it looks like it's coming for Fermin, from the ability to just breathe a little bit up there, know that you can control the strike zone, that when a ball comes into it, you're going to put the bat on it. And he has that ability. He has good plate coverage. He has good, bat to ball skills. And so he just needs to trust that he doesn't need to extend his strike zone to make contact with the balls, and especially early in counts, which he was doing a lot of previously. So it's great to see him get back, not striking out too much, got even a walk in there. Hopefully he can show a new level of patience moving forward. Of course, we had some weak performers too, Mike. I think that. I think from just watching the eye test,
Oh, yeah.
I think the eye test will show you we had some weak performances this week. Mike, who are you looking at and saying, hey, man, you got to do better?
Oh, yeah. Had a lot of guys to choose from on the weak side, especially in the pitching. But I went with a hitter. I went with MJ Melendez, and actually him and Drew Waters. So I could literally just be talking about Drew Waters right now, because they had the exact same line. 2 for 15, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, no extra base hits, no RBI for MJ Melendez this week. And it's getting to a point now where you really have to start asking yourself, what adjustments can MJ Melendez make to be more consistent? Because if he isn't, his value is not great long term. He's not catching. He's playing a pretty poor outfield right now. And yeah, it's not good. 7 strikeouts to 1 walk in a week when you've only had 15 play or at bats. So it's not good for MJ Melendez.
Well,
And it's so bad because and I feel like it's this way for a couple guys on the team, because when they're good, they're so good. You're like, man, if they could just even that out and get consistency there, we have a great player. But it just doesn't happen from Melendez. It happens for 2 weeks, and then you're like, where'd he go?
Well, here's the thing. Melendez has to hear some footsteps right behind him because Nelson Velasquez is looking like he might be the real deal. And it's like, Melendez, if you're not going to hit, we can throw out an outfield of Velasquez, Isbell, and Waters. Now, who knows if Waters is going to hit enough? Who knows if Isbell is going to hit enough? Frankly, who knows if Velasquez is going to hit enough? But Melendez is not solidifying or locking anything down, and the Royals are getting more options. Tyler Gentry is an option down in AAA. You got to wonder if he's not going to get a look this September because,
Lofton can play outfield.
Lofton can also play the outfield. And so, you got to think to yourself, if you're MJ Melendez, you got to be wondering like, oh, if I don't get it together, is this going to get taken from me here before too long? Because
am I going to be Edward Olivares? So they're going to send my ass down? Like,
yeah, and here's the thing: in spring training, why wouldn't it just be an open competition for who can take that outfield spot? Because you've given Melendez now 2 full seasons. He was okay in his first, average, right? But he's been just downright awful this season. And so the question you have to ask yourself is, what does his future look like? You can't say like, well, he's solidified in the lineup in any way, shape, or form. And so, I don't know what they're going to do with him. He has to make an adjustment of some kind. But in spring training, I'm guessing it's going to be, hey, guess what? We got an open competition in left field this year. My week performer of the week is a sort of losing the open competition to some degree for any spot in the rotation right now, and that's Alec Marsh. He actually came out and put together a decent performance earlier this week, but then he came out today and just completely shat the bed. And so he went 2 2/3 innings in today's game with 7 hits, 6 earned runs, 2 walks, 1K, 1 home run. The problem with Marsh is he's just creating this negative impression in the minds of coaches right now that it's like, okay, he's a guy we're gonna have. We can't feel good about. We can't feel like we can't rely on him. We can't count on him to go out and give us 5, 6, 3 or less earned runs and that sort of thing. Right now, it's just not very reliable. It's real volatile from Marsh. He'll go out and give a pretty solid performance one day and strike out 9 or something, and then he'll go out and just get shelled the next. And so this offseason, there's got to be something related to that command. The command needs to take a tick up. The stuff, sure, they can work on that too, but that command is so bad, it's creating a lot of problems for him. And so we'll see what they do with him in the spring when they're like, is he going to be a part? I'm sure he'll be a part of the starter conversation and the competition, just because what other options do they have? But he needs to take some big steps forward before anybody says, oh, he's a lock even for the back end of the rotation.
Yeah, and I think that's largely because if you're looking at your back end of the rotation guys, the profile you want is give me the guy who's more consistent, if less, maybe less top end talent, but more consistent. I think any head coach will take that for your number 5 over a guy who might throw you 5 or 6 with 9 or 10 strikeouts once a month, and then you have to go to the bullpen in the third like they did today in those other starts. So yeah, I think they're going to lean consistency, and Alec Marsh isn't that right now.
Mike, in a truncated week for us, what sort of theme are you coming up with for how the Royals played?
I took a quote from a Batman movie, and it's when Bane is kicking the crap out of Batman. He says, "Oh, you think darkness is your ally?" And I did my.
You got to do
That's
it in
not
the
my.
you
Not
got
my
to
best
do it in the
Bane,
Bane voice. If you're gonna do it in the Bane voice. Okay,
I can't.
You got to be a man
really
and
can't.
do it.
I can't.
Then I will.
Can't. I think it's like, oh, okay. Go ahead, please.
Okay, you ready? Ready? You think
I'm ready.
darkness is your ally? You merely adopted
Wow, that
the
wasn't
dark.
bad. That wasn't bad.
I was born in it, molded by it.
Molded by it. Yeah, I got that one. So I picked that because now today, multiple people, unprompted, multiple people said, "Man, is it really hard to have a podcast for a team that loses so much?" And yes, people, yes, Mark and I have only done this podcast when the Royals have been very bad. And so it got me like thinking, and Morgan and I, my wife, were talking about like, what would happen if the Royals were good? Would that change like doing the podcast and stuff? And it's like, maybe, I don't know. Like, and I started thinking, I was born in the darkness. Like, I've only known one small stint of Royals victory in my life. Mark and I were born when the year they won the World Series in '85, but that was it. I didn't know Royals teams until the '90s, and they were all garbage. In the early 2000s, they were all garbage. And, we had that one little stretch there. But other than that, we've been in the darkness. We were molded by the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And yeah. So when people ask me that, I'm like, I don't know anything else. Like, this is my life. Bad Royals teams are as much as a part of life as waking up and breathing.
Yeah, that I've decided that we're only taking these themes from songs and movie quotes now, because that's what I want to do from now on. So from now on, your theme must be a song or a movie quote. That's a rule, okay? I chose a quote from a song by one of our favorite bands, Guster, and the quote is, "Hollow my head, it echoes like a wooden drum," and the theme came from, how earlier I mentioned that these players like sometimes looked a little bit lifeless this week. And it's like, as a fan, that's also what it felt like watching the team this week, where it's just like, oh man, like I felt a little empty because I was like, okay, here's another game where they're going to lose to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Wonderful, wonderful, awful, terrible. Okay, here we go. And it was just like, how do you prepare for handling the September in a season where you're just trekking towards 110 losses? You got to hollow yourself out, honestly. You just got to be hollow and just, play that sucker like a wooden drum.
Embrace the darkness.
Royals Weekly is brought to you by Knapp Family Wealth. Mike, can you think of anything more important than securing your financial future?
How about a little thing called friendship?
I mean, yeah, that's important.
Or a little thing called Magic the Gathering?
Yeah, that's less important. Securing your financial future is one of the most important steps someone can take for themselves and their family, and Knapp Family Wealth is ready to help you pursue it. This isn't some big faceless corporation we're talking about here. Knapp Family Wealth is brought to you by JC Knapp, is run by JC Knapp. He's a huge baseball fan, and he's been helping people plan for their financial futures for 20 years. He can help with retirement planning so you don't have to work till you're dead, education planning so your kids learn to read good, investment management so you get all that money out of your mattress and get it working for you. Don't spend another day thinking you've got it all figured out, because trust me, you don't. Check out Knapp Family Wealth at knappfamilywealth.com. That's KNAPP familywealth.com. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA/SIPC. On this week's Spotlight segment, we're going to try to clarify our own thinking on what the Royals should do with a few of the guys currently on their roster. There's a lot of talk about extensions and trades and what do we do to build a consistently winning team. I can't get on Twitter without somebody screaming, extend Bobby Witt Jr., offer him $600 million. It's just various things. And so we want to sort of take up what they should do with some of these players. We have some thoughts about various guys, so we're packaging them all together in a game that we like to call "Don't You Want Me, JJ?" Right? Don't you want me, JJ? Okay, we're doing it after this is of course an ode to the 1981 classic from the Human League, "Don't You Want Me, Baby." We'll call a few different players, or we'll consider a few different players currently on the roster, and each of us will decide, should the Royals extend this player, trade this player immediately, or wait and trade them later? Mike, are you ready?
Oh, I was born that way.
Oh, he was born as a waitress in a cocktail bar. Mike.
That's right.
Mike, we're going to start with the one everybody's talking about, because might as well. Everybody's waiting to hear this too. Bobby Witt Jr., are you extending him, waiting and trading him later, or trading him immediately?
I'm extending him. And this one was tough because, I understand both sides of the argument. Extend him, yes. I don't know that the Royals have the money to extend him, or that he ever really wants to be extended here in Kansas City. I have no clue on any of those things. But I know a couple things. I know Bobby Witt Jr. is a really good baseball player. And I know the Royals have caught a lot of flack for not extending some of their talented players earlier in their controllable times than what they tried to. Who have we really kept?
Mike, they're just going to trade all their best players anyway.
Control. Well, and I understand that's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
You sound like a Facebook.
You don't necessarily have to. No, I that's not the same thing, though. To me, that's really not the same thing. Like, Bobby Witt Jr. has an opportunity to buy out, his years of arbitration plus a couple of years after that. He can still get a big time contract after that. And so I think it would be cool to extend Bobby Witt Jr. and make sure that you have him for at least, a good run here where he can become a Royals legend and possibly be the cornerstone of a team that can, make the playoffs. So I would extend him. I think that's kind of the safe play if the Royals can, muster the money and the gumption to do it.
See, I think exactly the opposite. I think that is actually the very risky play. To take so much money and put it into one player is exceptionally risky to me, right? And we can point to the contracts that have just been albatrosses around the necks of teams because they didn't pay up. Look at San Diego and the huge contract they gave Eric Hosmer right there, right? That is a perfect example. Now everyone's going to say, oh, Witt Jr. is better than Hosmer. Yes, he is better than Hosmer. As a result, they'll have to pay him twice as much as what they were going to pay Hosmer. And so, we need to acknowledge, nobody's acknowledging this. They're sort of saying, if you sign Bobby Witt Jr. to an extension, it's going to all work out. They're not even thinking about what if it doesn't, right? And I don't just mean what if he doesn't play well enough to live up to the contract. I mean, what if we pay Bobby Witt Jr. 30?
What if he's really good and they never make the playoffs?
Exactly. What if he's really, really good and they can never spend enough or do enough to build a team around him to make it playoff worthy? So we get 10 years of Bobby Witt Jr. or 7 or 8 or whatever you're imagining as an extension, and we never make the playoffs, right? you don't want to be tying up all of your assets into one player. I mean, look at the Yankees. They gave Aaron Judge a fucking ship full of money, and the bottom of their roster sucks, and they're not very good, right? Like, and so this is the problem. You put so many assets into one player, and that's the Yankees, right? We can't even come close to spending Yankees money. And so it's just not the model for teams like us to do that sort of thing. It's one thing, everybody will be like, Atlanta does it, Tampa Bay's done it a couple of times. Tampa Bay just did it with Wander Franco. How's that looking right now? Right? Wander Franco looks like he might be in prison in 6 months. Like, what are we talking about here? And so there is a ton of risk associated with giving any player a lot of money. There's a bunch of risk associated with it. Okay. And so don't tell me there isn't. I'm on the wait and trade them later bandwagon because I would like the Royals to become a model that's highly transactional, at least for now, highly transactional, moves players at their peaks and that sort of thing. And Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be worth a ton in 2 or 3 years, 4 years, And I also think that I think the number you're going to have to give Bobby Witt Jr. to get him to extended is going to be market price or beyond, because why would he stay here, right? Like, he doesn't need the money. He got a big bonus when he signed, and he comes from money. People also don't realize that all these dudes, like 90% of the dudes who take these long-term contracts early in their careers, they don't come from money. Okay. That's like the unsaid thing, is mostly they're Latin American players who need money. Okay. And so he has no incentive to take the deal. He has no incentive to take the money. And, why would he want to stick around a team that's about to lose 110 games? He has no reason to take that deal. He has no reason to take a long-term deal from the Royals. So I'm a wait and trade him later kind of move, because you'll get a boatload in prospects from him. Let him sort of become a superstar for you for a little bit, and then get the best value you can out of him, because it'll be a lot. Moving on to another guy, Vinny Pasquantino, Mike. He hasn't played at all this year. Looked like he did play earlier this year. I'm sorry. He played for like a month, and then he got hurt. What are your thoughts on Vinny Pasquantino? Extend him, trade him now, trade him later?
He's a guy that for me was a little bit easier. I extend him because, one, I think you're going to be able to do it at a little bit cheaper price. And two, I think the skills that he has as a hitter are very much resistant to, the roller coaster that is Major League Baseball, I guess you would say. I think when he's healthy, he's going to be a consistent bat in your lineup, but you're not going to be paying for traits that sometimes you pay for on the open market and can be overvalued, like stealing bases, like some of their outfield, the defensive stuff. You're really just paying for what Vinny Pasquantino is as a hitter. And I think that's a good thing. I also think, and I think this is important, I think he does bring a little bit something to the clubhouse that other players need. Whether, it's the bring them together, it's the joking around kind of stuff. So I think that's good either way. But yeah, if you can lock him up now when he's only had one big season of value, I think you do it.
Yeah, and Pasquantino, I agree with you there. I put extend for Pasquantino just because, unlike Bobby Witt Jr., he didn't get a big bonus out of draft day. He was drafted in like the 9th or 10th round, something like that, maybe 11th. I can't remember. But it wasn't a big payday for Vinny Pasquantino when he got drafted, and so you may not have to go break the bank to extend him, and so extend Pasquantino. He gets a little financial security for his future. I don't know that Pasquantino comes from gigantic wealth either, and so I think you have a much better shot at extending him at a reasonable price than you do at Bobby Witt Jr. And so, and like you, I agree that the fact that he has an advanced approach to the plate might mean that some of his offensive ability is a little more resistant to the ups and downs of Major League Baseball. The one thing you do worry about with him, injury. He was hurt this year, hurt some in the minors, had a back injury, which is what dropped his draft stock anyway. Hopefully he can stay healthy if you do something like extend him. Guy who hasn't necessarily stayed healthy his whole career, but has given the Royals a ton of value in a World Series. Mike, everybody's talking about Salvador Perez. What are they going to do with him this offseason? We know that there were calls about trading him at this deadline. What do you think the Royals should do with Salvador Perez?
I think they should trade him. We mentioned that we probably thought they should have traded him at the deadline as well. It depends on what you get and how much of that salary you can unload. If you can get a solid prospect back for Salvador Perez, and even if you have to eat some of his contract, I think you do it if you're the Royals. Because not only because of what he is as a player now, and he's now on the backside of his career, but also because your system is only really deep at one position, and it's catcher. I mean, you've got Freddie Fermin, you've got Carter Jensen coming up, you've got Kale Emshoff, and who's the other guy I'm forgetting?
Luca Tresh.
Thank you. Luca Tresh is the one I was thinking of. And so, yeah, you've got some guys there that you might like in the future. I, I I probably trade him if I'm getting something back in the starting pitching realm that is valuable.
Yeah, I'm a trade immediately, and by that I mean this offseason on Salvador Perez. And you're right; they need to eat as much money as they need to eat to make this a decent return in prospects. If they got to eat 15 million of that 20 million, eat it and take prospects. Why? Because they're in a cycle right now where they're not paying anyone. Like other than Salvador Perez and Jordan
Yeah.
Lyles, they have no money on their books. I guess Zach Greinke, whatever he costs, but he's done after this year, and so they don't have any money on the books anyway. Go ahead and trade him. Get a few guys who are going to be that really cheap talent for you. You're spending, let's say you eat 15 million of that contract for 2 years, each of the next 2 years. Fine, because you're not going to get into your free agency periods. You're not going to get into your big time arbitration periods for another couple years anyway. And so, you're not paying. Sure, Brady Singer is going to be somewhat expensive next year, but not hugely expensive. And so you have money freed up anyway. Go ahead and eat some of that Salvador Perez money to get some young, controllable talent in here that actually has a chance of impacting Major League Baseball. If they could get one starter who's looks like a decent, legit prospect, one position player maybe, or a couple starters, either one, who looks like maybe a mid-tier prospect, and one reliever who's a legit relief prospect who just aren't valued as highly, I'd be happy with that return for Salvador Perez. How about Maikel Garcia, Mike? People are talking about him because he's not a true fit at third base. What are your thoughts on what they should do with him?
Yeah. It is very interesting because the profile that he has would be very valuable at shortstop. And I think he plays a phenomenal shortstop. And to this day, it's going to be very hard. Bobby Witt Jr. is playing a great shortstop. But for the make every routine play, Maikel Garcia, I think, is a better shortstop at that. I do. I think he's naturally more gifted at the position. But he's not Bobby Witt Jr. So, and the profile doesn't really play at third, like you mentioned earlier. So I'm probably a trade him right now anyway. As it stands now, I'm probably a trade him, especially since you have a guy like Nick Lofton who might be able to step in and play third. But yeah, I probably trade him if there's something in return. And here's the thing, though. I don't know if he's shown enough in Major League Baseball to really say, well, you're going to be able to get a great return for this guy. I just don't.
do.
Now, if a team really needs a shortstop, you might be able to do that. I just don't know.
See, I think you can, and here's why. He has shown the ability to hit at roughly a major league average and play a well above average defense at shortstop. So he will be a plus value at shortstop for someone. And then add on the fact that he's only 23 years old. And some team's going to look at him and say, wait, we can get a guy who's a slightly above average player right now who might become a near all-star level player if we can put some power onto him, if we can help increase his bat speed or get some sort of power out of him. Yeah, I'm taking that. And it's in Major League Baseball. You're not trading for a guy who might be successful in Major League Baseball. You're trading for a guy who's already been successful in Major League Baseball. That's huge, right? Plus, he's going to help you on the base paths. He's going to do the little things in that way. Why would you not trade for him? He's got good on base, good walk, good enough strikeout numbers. Yeah, I think a team would jump out of their shoes if they're like, we need a shortstop to make him their shortstop because he's got a ton of control as well. Like, yeah, he's ideal in terms of a trade candidate for a guy you're like, trade him now, get as much as you can out of him. Because if you can pull 3 legitimate contributors from a Maikel Garcia trade, you have now flipped. You've gone a long way towards helping the depth of this roster, right? Like, the problem with their roster right now is it's not deep enough. It needs to be deeper. And so you trade him. Maybe Nick Lofton plays third. Now you find maybe some prospects who can be outfield solutions for you or starting pitching solutions for you. That's huge for them. So I think looking at guys like Salvi, imagine if they traded both Salvi and Maikel Garcia this offseason, how far that would go towards just sort of turning this roster around in a really positive way.
Yeah, and you're going to get a couple guys that increase the talent of your minor league system, which isn't great. So
yeah, that too. And any step in that direction is a good step as well. Another guy who could be part of that this offseason, if only we had the courage to be this transactional. Mike, what do you think about Brady Singer? Do we need to trade him? He's only got a couple of years left before he hits free agency. Trade, extend, or wait and see?
I'm going with wait and see, but it's only because of the circumstances of where their starting rotation is now. Like, it's so bad. They cannot afford to give away Brady Singer. Like, they can't afford to trade Brady Singer unless they're getting somebody back that can start immediately. It's just insane to me. I don't know if it's been a long time since I've seen a starting rotation this bad. And
Wait,
so
wait, wait,
you're
wait.
giving away the second best guy in your starting rotation.
Wait, hold on.
It's hard
Hold
for me.
on. So you're saying, like, okay, they're going to lose 110 games this year. You wouldn't trade Brady Singer and then take what's the difference between trading him and taking 115 losses versus the 110 you're already going to take? Right? Like, what's the
Well,
difference?
that's the thing.
Right? Like,
The difference is how long it takes to get a competitive rotation in there. Like we said, 2 free agents this offseason, and your rotation could be decent, if not deep, but decent. You take Brady Singer out of that, that's a whole nother equation.
If it's not deep, it's not decent.
And I'm not
This is Major
sold that
League
he can't get
Baseball.
better.
Right. I'm a trade immediately guy on Brady Singer, and here's why. He's going to be a free agent in 2 years. He's not on the next competitive Royals team. I'll tell you that right now. And so why not move him now when he's got the most control you can get? Some teams will look at his numbers this year and they might be a little squeamish, but they can see that the FIP is in order. They can see that they can get something out of that. They're probably looking at him and saying, like, we know he's at the very least a solid back end guy and has the potential to be a mid rotation guy. We'll take that. Starting pitching so valuable, and the free agent market for starting pitching this offseason is garbage. So that means you're going to get as much out of trade as you could probably possibly get for a Brady Singer. Go ahead and trade him, get 2 or 3 pitching prospects in return, and then see what happens, right? Go out and spend your own in free agency if you want. But the fact is that the fact that he's only got 2 years of control is not, but he's not probably going to take, you know, Singer doesn't need the money. He doesn't have incentive to take a team friendly deal or anything. So you're paying market prices if you want to extend him. I don't want to pay market prices for Brady Singer. I want to build what you want is a really young starting pitching pool so that you don't have to pay for the most valuable resource in baseball. And so I know it's going to hurt, but trade him, get some more of that young starting pitching talent, and let's start giving shots to guys like Anthony Veneziano, some more of those prospects that are coming in, Andrew Hoffman, and we'll see if some of those stick. But I'd much rather have a cost control, inexpensive rotation than going out paying big money for them.
And Preston Farr on Twitter the other day, I had a little back and forth with him just talking about what I think it was him. He put out like his projected starting rotation in 2024, and 2 of them were Andrew Hoffman and Anthony Veneziano. My thing to that was you're going to put 40% of your rotation as guys who've never pitched in Major League Baseball and hope that they're going to be okay. And one of the other guys was Daniel Lynch. And it's like, wait a second, that's 60% of your rotation who's never had success in Major League Baseball. That you're just saying, okay, hands up, we give up, we're not going to win. Which, I mean, I understand that, but hey, you should be trying to win, right?
Yeah, you should be. You should be. But they're going to lose 110 games this year. Okay, let's not pretend. We do this every year. We pretend like they're not as bad as they are. They are this bad. They are this bad. And so, whatever they can do to replenish their pitching talent, they need to do, because they're not one Brady Singer away. They are not one Brady Singer away. And so trade him and get what you can for him at his most valuable, which is probably right now. We got one more starting pitcher to talk about, and I just threw him in. Nobody's talking about like extending him or anything like that, but I thought, hey, he's having a good time. Let's talk about him. Cole Ragans. Mike, what are your thoughts on what the Royals should do with Cole Ragans? And this should tell you a little bit about anybody's attitude towards starting pitching overall. Mike, your thoughts?
First, let me just say, I don't know that there's a bigger Cole Ragans head out there. I love Cole Ragans. Appointment television, love the guy. I would wait simply for the reason that starting pitchers are injury prone. I mean, injuries abound in those. And if you sign him now in his controllable years, you could possibly be throwing away one of those years of your extension that you've just given a guy. And you're talking about a guy who's had 2 Tommy John surgeries already. And so I'm a little bit hesitant on doing something for him, extending him, without seeing more of a track record of starting and being durable in that process. Because, yeah, pitchers get hurt, man. And so I would wait on Cole Reagans. Now, I am not saying I would wait and trade him later. I would wait to see a full year of starting before I talked about extending him.
I would wait and trade him later, and I mean that because I would never, ever, ever offer market price money to a dude who's got 2 Tommy Johns on his record. Not going to happen for me. Pitching is way too volatile in terms of injuries, and like I said, the model I prefer for the Royals is that they build a starting pitching factory that allows them to trade off of their strength of numerous starting pitchers, like the Rays do, like Cleveland does. If you can be a team that can produce your own starting pitching, you don't have to extend every starter. Okay. And I'm
All
happy
I'm
to
hearing
see them
is
be that
I
level
want
of
the Royals
transactional.
to be the Oakland A's.
No, that's not what Oakland does. That's not at all what Oakland does. And so,
Okay.
that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, Cole Reagan's great pitcher, looks amazing, but it is so dicey to give free agent like starting money to a starting pitcher. It just doesn't seem like something that's plausible in the Royals' future. Following a week to forget for the Royals will take on a team who has been so dysfunctional this season they put a former Royal in charge to figure it all out. But I bet they will lead the league in grit next year. Just they're going to lead the league in grit with Chris Getz. Of course, we're talking about the White
Grit and
Stockings of
sermons
Chicago.
given.
They made Chris Getz their GM this year. Look out. No team will run harder to first base on a routine ground ball. Mike, tell us about the White Sox because after them, they're going to take on the Blue Jays, and I'll tell them about that.
Just the greatest thing in the world is that they're going to have Pedro Gafal as their manager, Chris Getz as their GM, and probably Dayton Moore as an advisor to that team. And so, oh my God, that is going to be fantastic. Maybe we can trade Michael Garcia for their best 8 players or something.
Salvador Perez, baby.
Salvador Perez for Luis Robert and Dylan Cease. Or I don't know. So the White Sox, they've been a travesty this year. A lot of high hopes for them after they kicked the old man aside, bringing Grifol. Somewhat talented roster, we thought, but they're 53-82, 4th in the AL Central as of the recording of this. Huge dysfunction. They're 25th in pitcher WAR and 28th in hitter WAR, and their defense is also very bad. And so it's not looking good. They've had a couple good offensive performers, but it's kind of top heavy. Luis Robert is having a really good year, and then Eloy Jimenez and Andrew Vaughn are having good, solid years. After that, it drops tremendously. And the pitching staff is even worse. It's Dylan Cease, who they were really counting on after a huge year last year, has almost a 5 ERA. So does Michael Kopech, the other guy they were really counting on. Their best starting pitcher has been Mike Clevenger. I think he's got like a 3.9 ERA. But
didn't he catch
he's
a domestic violence beef this offseason? I think
he did. You are correct.
Yeah, okay.
But he's been their best. He's been their best pitcher so far. So it has not been good. And they sent was it Hendricks? Their relief pitcher that's really good. He had Tommy John. It's just been a really, really bad year.
Yeah.
But after that, the boys are going to Canada.
Yee! I'm not even allowed there anymore. Mike, they're going to take on the Toronto Blue Jays, who are 74-61, but have the misfortune of being in the AL East. So they're 3rd in the AL East with 74-61. Good team, tough division. They're 9th in team OPS, which is pretty good, really good. 2nd in team ERA. They're really pitching and hitting well. Deep lineup, guys like Bo Bichette, Vlad Jr., who's having a little bit of a down year this year, but he's still Vlad Jr. Matt Chapman, obviously Whit Merrifield now plays for them. George Springer, I think Whit's having a bounce back year this year. Pitching staff,
he's doing pretty good.
Guys like Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassett. Yusei Kikuchi, I think, is having a little bit of a bounce back year too. Gausman is just filthy with splitters and just incredible pitcher from him. Let's hope
he's got over 200 strikeouts already.
Let's hope they miss him in the rotation because, man, the Royals can't handle a splitter. I don't want to see it. And so, hopefully they run into some fortunate starting pitching up in Canada. We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with our Just A Bit Outside segment, where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. Mike, what is something that you want to talk about that's important to your life?
Well, I don't know that it's hugely important to my life, but it's just something I want to advocate for. Mark and I were at a friend's house doing an annual celebration to the kickoff of the beginning of the college football season. So shout out to our friend Jared for the good time there. But we were watching the Colorado TCU game very closely today. And one thing that we noticed was that a local kid, Dylan Edwards, scored 4 touchdowns in that game as a true freshman for Colorado. He's out of Wichita, I believe. But it kind of made us start this like conversation of, man, there's a lot of high school talent in the Kansas City area. We were talking specifically about football, but then that got me thinking about many, many other sports. We are very blessed to have a variety of high school sports here. So I'm encouraging you to go check some of that out. Mark and I went to the Lee Summit North Liberty North football game last weekend. There were probably 5 or 6 Division I guys on that field at any time. And that's huge. I mean, that's not something you find all the time. Go out and check out a high school softball game this fall or in the spring. I mean, think about the players that we've seen recently come out of Kansas City. We Carter Jensen, Jacob Mizorowski, Ben Kaderna, just lots of talent that have come out from the Kansas City area. So get out there and check out some of your high school sports. Those kids, as a former high school football coach, they work their butts off. Go celebrate that with them, all of them. So this is the first fall that I've really gotten to do that as a fan, and I'm really loving it.
Yeah, I love going out there and seeing a great youth, not youth, but like a high school level sporting event when, they're still young and still raw, but you can see that, oh, this player stands out among all of the other players, like we saw on that field the other night. But yeah, go out and see some of those others in sports that you may not, normally watch, like softball, basketball, or, I guess a lot of people watch basketball, but
go to a high school wrestling meet. Those things are insane. They're fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm talking about something that's just an odd little thing. I guess it's not odd. Sometimes it can be bad. My partner is young, as you guys may know. She's like 9 years younger than me, and I'm what am I like? What are we now? 37.
37, man.
So she's like still in her 20s barely, and so she knows what things like Snapchat and Instagram are. I don't really know most of those things, but she knows them, and so sometimes she'll like show me stuff on her phone. The other day, we're sitting at a restaurant, I think, and she shows me this filter on Snapchat, and the filter it like designed to make your face look like, I don't know how to describe it, but like, I don't know, it's like a if you can't hear this because
like
it's
a
podcast,
puffy face?
it's like a puffy lips and like a munchkin nose or whatever. Basically, it's designed to show you like, here's what you would look like if you got a nose job and lip filler and all this stuff. And I was like, that's messed up. Like, that is messed up to me. And then it got me thinking about like, okay, it would not. I'm now become convinced that the plastic surgery industry is like funding filters for Snapchat and Instagram and stuff like that. Because I saw another one, like an ad for one after this, where the filter just makes you look younger. Like, that's the whole point of the filter, is to make you look younger than you are. And I'm like, what is this crap? Like, convincing people that they sort of, well, this is what you. I mean, in TV shows, when they talk about plastic surgeons, they're like, here's what you could look like if you just let me, give me a ton of money and let me, do surgery on you. And I'm like, this is messed up. Like, we've talked about like the ways in which social media and stuff can harm people and stuff like that. And I'm a, big believer in all that. But I want to talk about the ways in which like some of that social media is specifically preying on the way we look and convincing us to sort of think and fixate on the way we look so much and show us an alternate version of ourselves that society or whatever social media then enforces is a better version of ourselves. It's garbage. It's not a better version of you. You are perfect the way you are. And so don't be like, and then we reinforce all this with, hey, if you want to look different than you are, that's fine. Look at it. And it's like, yeah, but you understand that same self-affirming narrative is just lining the pockets of plastic surgeons with all this crap, right? Like, if I can create a permission structure for me to go get elective surgery to look different, I will create that permission structure. I can tell myself any narrative I want to give myself permission to do that. And so I worry. I'm just putting out there, I really worry about like the avenue, the path that I'm seeing this take people down. And I'm just like, hey man, what is this? Why are we doing this? Why is like, oh, here's a filter to make me look younger. Here's a filter to give me a different nose and different lips and different eyes. And who gives a shit? Okay. Like, I do not care. And so please stop it with that. I know you may think, oh, it's fun. Yeah, I got dog ears. Yeah, that's fun. That's fine. Until you start trying to get dog ears from a plastic surgeon. Okay.
I will say
That's
there
all
are
we
some
have.
very legitimate reasons to get plastic surgery. A
Right.
lot of them.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
There are definitely legitimate reasons to get plastic surgery. Burn victims need it, and other people need it. Deviated septums and all that sort of stuff. I get it. I'm not like dogging on plastic surgery. In fact, I'm not dogging on that. What I'm dogging on is this culture that seems to consistently feed us the notion that we don't look good enough and we need to look at a different standard. I do not like that. I
know
don't
I
like it
look
at
good
all.
enough. I don't know about anybody. I mean, I look
I
great.
look great.
So.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know what people are talking about in those comments they leave on YouTube. Anyway, that's all we have for this week. I got to edit this so I can go to Spain tomorrow. Until next week when I won't be here, be good to each other.
And go Royals.